So the next person says, what we need to do is we need to figure out a way to honor Father Mike. And he helped us build this parish hall. Why don't we name this parish hall after him? So I can see on the sign, it'd be like Father/child molester Michael Petrovich. And I'm sitting in the back, and I just, like, my head, it's like one of those things your head's going to explode. I just couldn't believe it. But I'm a trained reporter, so I'm looking around the room, and I see a guy standing on the wall. He's got this kind of, buzz cut, big old muscles. Think about me, like if it's me over there. And he's just got veins popping out of his neck. And he's just like this. And I'm just, as a journalist, I'm going, this is bitching, man, because this guy's going to blow. And it'll be great for my story. And so they decide, let's name the parish hall. I second. Okay, let's take a voice vote. All in favor of the parish hall named after Father Mike, say aye. And before they can say that, this guy just goes, enough! At the top of his lungs, just enough! Just you hear a pin drop. It's like, okay, this is good. I got my little notepad hidden away, right. He said, I'm a cop. I deal with these people all the time. I guarantee he hasn't done it just one time. How dare the diocesan officials there? How dare the diocesan officials leave this guy in ministry? I bring my kids here. I've had my kids in his presence alone. And how dare you do this? This guy should be in jail. And by the way, you guys call yourselves Christians. You talk for 15 minutes or whatever, how the time was. Now, all you care about is the perpetrator. There's not one of you that said one word about the victim. Shame on you, shame on all of you. And he walks out the door. And you got to know, clap. That's, that is so rare. And so I was like, there's a little, there's one courageous guy who gets it out of this, mob group. And so I start to get up and follow him because I wanted to see if I can get his name to be quoted in the paper. And so I'm getting up and kind of walking away, and this woman in the front row goes, this is just good story, this doesn't really have anything to do with anything. And she goes, there's even more important question here we got to answer. And she's like shouting at this. I'm like, this is going to get even bitchier. So I just sit down, and she turns around, she points right to me, she goes, what's the LA Times reporter doing in our midst? So the whole mob turns around. And I thought I was going to be martyred right there. So they start screaming at me. They said, you know what? You are going to ruin Father Mike's reputation. So I said, I think when he molested that kid, that sort of did it. And they said, but he just did it one time. And, it's 19 years ago. So they're buying the church's line and the priest line. I said, I've done this a long time, and one thing that victims hate is when they are ignored and discounted. And so if he has another victim somewhere out there and they read that he just did one kid, I guarantee you tomorrow my phone's going to ring with the other victims. And, well, you don't know Mike, he's baptized our kids, he's married us, he's been, presided over funerals of our loved ones. We promise you this could never happen. This is, and I said, what? I promise you it's going to happen. But we'll see who's right tomorrow. And of course, tomorrow I get a call late in the afternoon from some kid. He was not a kid now, he's an adult, but he spent the whole day on the phone with his childhood friends who were altar boys with him. Every single one of them had been molested by this guy. They hadn't talked about it. And now he just called. So one time, and there's a lot of times you write a story just saying, you're glad you can write that story, and I was glad to get the other victims in the paper because it legitimizes what happened, or that it happened to them. So I was driving home from this church, and I'm like, okay, you got the bishops who are corrupt, almost every one of them. There's one bishop in the world, by the way, one bishop in the entire world that stood up for the victims. He's been ostracized from the Catholic Church. So you got the bishops who are corrupt, you've got the molesting priest, then you got the good priest that knew all about the molesting priest but never turned him in. And then you got this laity that will ignore what in our society is the worst crime, molesting a kid. We'll just ignore that because it doesn't match with their vision of worshiping this priest who's this great father figure. And so, needless to say, I did not go in the Catholic Church. And I stopped going to church within a probably 4 or 5 month period. I stopped going to church altogether. And I didn't know why it was. I just thought I was burned out. I couldn't even conceive that I would stop believing in my faith. I just thought, God, I'm really burned out. I work on this full time. I need a break. All this other stuff. So it was like, there's such denial in my brain. The good thing about the Catholic Church scandal was it made me into one of the better investigative reporters in the country having to do with religion. And one thing good about the Faith Beat is there's no shortage of subjects to investigate. So I'll tell you this one, which is it's just funny. But this is the type of story I'd get. Is there's a fairly well-known evangelical pastor, and he would travel the world, as a lot of them do, and he had a special assistant, male assistant, who would travel with him. It turns out the male assistant and him had a little extracurricular activities going on. So their board made this guy step down so he can be rehabbed to his full heterosexual self. And so it was a 3-month rehab. And so he went into rehab, and of course his assistant's fired. So his assistant's fired, finds another guy for a boyfriend, and the pastor comes back as a full man, and he finds out that his old boyfriend has a lover. So this is this pastor's mistake. He hires a Mormon hitman to kill his ex-lover. And as happens with Mormon hitmen, he had a change of heart, and so there's nowhere in the Book of Mormon that says you can murder. So this Mormon hitman turned all the evidence in, including tapes of this guy calling and everything else. I left the beat right when this happened. I couldn't follow the story, but for some reason they haven't filed charges against this guy, and I don't know why. But there's a lesson there if you ever want to knock somebody off. Don't do with it.
Hire an atheist.
Hire an atheist. So I did all these investigative stories. One of my big stories I did was Music. Is it Music? No, Music Center USA. What's in Henderson, the TBN compound there? Trinity. Yeah. So I did a 2-year investigation on Trinity Broadcasting. Everybody knows those guys, Paul, Jan Crouch. So, and Benny Hinn, who's their star pupil, the faith healer Benny Hinn. So I went to Benny Hinn's, I did a lot of work on Benny Hinn, and I went to one of his faith healing miracle crusades, which you should have a group outing to. It's fabulous. It's free. It's the greatest show ever. And of course, Benny Hinn says, if you want to, you will be healed tonight. You will be healed tonight if you have enough faith. And then he passes around, those big 10-gallon paint buckets, and they put all their money in. But the psychology of it is so great that people really, 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 truly, and these people aren't stupid, they're just desperate. So in their last stages of cancer, they got Parkinson's disease, they've got long-term quadriplegia. So they want so badly to believe that they start to believe. And I'll give you an example of one kid. His name was Jordy. Jordy was from Canada, and he had a shunt in his arm. I said, "What's wrong with you, Jordy?" He said, "I'm on dialysis. My kidneys don't work." But you know what? Pastor Benny keeps telling us we have to step out in faith, which for Benny Hinn means send him money. But Jordy had a different idea. He said, why? If I have faith and I want to step out in faith, why should I still be on dialysis? So you know what I did, Bill? I stopped my dialysis a week ago. I go, Jordy, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, no. I mean, if I have faith, why would I have dialysis? Which, a lot of ways you can't really argue that logic. So he ended up, he didn't get cured. He was okay, barely. I followed his story back up to Canada. But these are what these people do. So, and by the way, Benny Hinn brings in $90 million tax-free money. He lives on probably one of the premier pieces of property in Southern California, on a cliff overlooking the beach. His house is probably worth $30 million. He's, for some reason, these televangelists love bodyguards. They don't need them, but they love them. And usually they're big, muscly guys that wear really tight T-shirts, and they love them for some reason. So they go everywhere with them. Even their shopping, they do their shopping. So Benny will walk through his. He loves health food stores. So we walk through a health food store, and just go 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these. Big young guys will just be filling his shopping cart with stuff. And if you go to Rodeo Drive, I think it's Gucci. They have in gold gold stenciling on the front window. They have all their best customers, and there's Demetrius Hinn is one of their Gucci's best customers. So it's a good job. But the problem is when Benny walks off stage, what his 27 cameras don't focus on is the people at the back on the floor of the arena. And these are people who truly believe they were going to walk out of there cured, and they're not. And they are just devastated. Imagine you're quadriplegic because you've never been able to walk, and you think you're going to walk out of there tonight, and you don't. And the most devastating thing to me is they don't blame Benny Hinn, and they don't blame God. They blame themselves for not having enough faith. And they're just ruined. And I don't think Benny Hinn believes a word of what he says, and he's laughing all the way to the bank. His dad died of cancer, I think. His mom has diabetes, and he can't cure them. He actually has 2 different heart conditions, can't cure himself.